Okay. So this is the first lecture in the course titled Finite Element Methods. And even before we go to the soul of the subject, we are going to understand few prerequisite concepts for this course. So consider that you have a simply supported beam of rectangular cross section and it is loaded by an arbitrary loading. So the loading on the beams seems something like this, arbitrary loading. If you consider any point within any molecule within this beam, then you are going to have strains on various planes passing through this molecule. So can someone tell me how many planes can pass through a randomly chosen point in a simply supported beam? Let us say this point, I will name it as A. So through point A, how many planes can pass? You can type your answer in chat box if you don't want to unmute. How many planes can pass through a selected point on a beam? Please respond in chat box if you are not if you don't want to unmute yourself. Once I receive your response, I can go ahead. Infinite. That's correct. So Devayani and Medha says there are infinite planes that can pass through a point under consideration. That's perfectly fine. And what are the types of strains that can prevail on a particular plane under consideration? For example, let me bring that molecule A here. So I am considering one of the planes passing through that molecule. Let us say that plane makes an angle of theta with reference to, I will call this as X, this as Z, and coming out of the plane of board towards you is Y. So the plane under consideration makes an angle of theta with reference to XY plane. So what are the types of strains that can act on this plane? So one of the strain will act normal to the surface, either tensile in nature, that means pulling the plane, or compressive in nature, which means pushing the plane. So this type of strain we denote by a notation epsilon. With epsilon is a strain that acts normal to the plane under consideration. And you are going to have two mutually orthogonal shear strains, which we will denote by notation gamma. So this is one gamma, that is strain parallel to the plane, and there is going to be another gamma, that is shear strain perpendicular to the plane of board, but it will be the parallel to this plane. I hope you are able to understand. I will try to draw a 3D view of this. So let us say this is the plane passing through point A under consideration. This is the plane that we are going to consider passing through point A under consideration. So this plane, you can have three types of strains. One strain is normal to the surface and we denote it by notation epsilon. It can be either tensile or it can be compressive. If the arrow is towards the plane, it is compressive. If arrow is away from the plane, it is pulling. That's why it is tensile strain. Then you are also going to have a strain parallel to the plane, or the strain that lies in the plane itself. So there are two mutually orthogonal directions along which you can have strains that can lie in the plane itself. Both these strains we are going to denote by notation gamma. I hope I am very clear about the notation. Shear strain is denoted by gamma. Shear normal strain is denoted by notation epsilon. What is the corresponding notation of stresses? So on this plane, you can have three components of stresses. One stress, which is perpendicular to the plane under consideration, we can call it as sigma. So epsilon and sigma, they have a correlation. Then the shear stresses, we are going to denote it by notation tau. This is standard practice. We denote shear stresses by notation tau, and we denote normal stresses by notation sigma. I hope you are with me as far as this notation is concerned. And now, when do we call sigma as positive or epsilon as positive, and when do we call tau as positive or gamma as positive? What is the sign convention for shear strain and what is the sign convention for normal strain? This is what we need to decide right now. Till this point, are you with me? If you have understood till this point, please respond yes in the chat box so that I can go ahead. Have you understood this? I am looking at the chat box. I need the answer. Yeah. Okay. So let us go ahead. Let us go ahead. So this is the Cartesian coordinate system, reference coordinate system that I have chosen. X is along the length of the beam, Z is across the length of the beam, and Y is also across the length of the beam, but Z, Y and X are mutually perpendicular. I hope we are on the same page. Now we are on the same page. Now what I am going to do is, as there are infinite planes passing through this point, there are infinite values of normal and shear strains that are unknowns. For example, if you have been given this loading on a simply supported beam, you need to analyze this beam in such a fashion that you will be able to find out normal and shear strains on all planes passing through all points under consideration. So therefore, if you consider point A, there are infinite planes passing through this point. On each of the plane, you are going to have 3 strain components, 1 normal strain and 2 shear strains. So what is the size of unknowns that you have in your hand? It is 3 into infinity at a point. And how many such points do lie within the beam? There are infinite points that lie within the beam. So the size of unknowns is 3 into infinity into infinity. What is the first infinity? So if you look at a point under consideration, there are infinite planes passing through that point. On each of these planes, you are going to have 3 unknown components of strains, and those are epsilon, gamma in one direction, gamma in another direction. All these strains are mutually perpendicular to each other. So this first infinity is number of planes passing through a point under consideration. And how many such points do you have in a beam? You have infinite points. So these are number of molecules or number of points that you can, let us not call it as molecules, because when you say molecules, it is finite. If you consider it as a point, then there are infinite points. So at each and every point in this beam, and on each and every plane passing through that point, you will like to know 3 strains, epsilon and 2 shear strains gamma. So therefore, the size of problem or the number of unknowns that we are handling seems to be infinite. It's not true, obviously, because you cannot cast infinite equations to solve for infinite unknowns. So therefore, these are the number of unknowns that seemingly you have in your hand. But Mohr's theorem comes to your rescue. So what does Mohr's theorem say? So I will state the statement of Mohr's theorem and then we will go ahead with this discussion. Mohr's theorem. You all must have studied Mohr's circle, that is the 2D representation of Mohr's theorem. So what does Mohr's theorem say? Mohr's theorem says, if at a point in a strained material, because look at the language precisely. If at a point in a strained material, is this beam a strained material? Yes, obviously, because it is subjected to loading. Under external loading and under this support condition, this beam is going to bend. It is the cross sections are also going to slide over each other. So definitely at a point you are going to experience deformations. If deformations are there, there is going to be strain. So therefore, look at this statement carefully. In a strained material, if you know the complete state of stress, words लिख रहा हूं कुछ कुछ, complete state of stress, complete state of stress, or for that matter strain. In a strained material, if if you know the complete state of stress or complete state of strain, what does it on a plane on three mutually orthogonal planes? So what is the next condition? You must have three mutually orthogonal planes. It is not required that these planes are horizontal, vertical, blah, blah, blah. No, not required. Any randomly chosen triplet of mutually orthogonal planes. For example, if this is the coordinate system, then one of the plane is xy plane, another plane is yz plane, and another plane is zx plane. These three planes are mutually orthogonal. Xy plane is orthogonal to zx plane, and zx plane is orthogonal to both xy and zy plane. So this is the triplet of three orthogonal planes passing through a point under consideration. So if you know the complete state of stress or strain on three mutually orthogonal planes passing through a point under consideration, then you can find out the complete state of stress or strain on any other triplet of mutually orthogonal planes passing through the same point under consideration. So I am going to break this statement into the pieces, and I am going to explain you what does this Moore's theorem mean. What is the first part of the statement? First part of the statement is this: if you know the complete state of stress or strain on three mutually orthogonal planes passing through a point under consideration. So what is the point under consideration in this case? Point under consideration in this case is A. So I am considering three mutually orthogonal planes passing through point A, xy, yz, and zx. If I know the complete state of stress on all these three mutually orthogonal planes passing through point A, what does it mean? What is complete state of stress? That means if I know one normal component and two shear stress components. So if on each of these three mutually orthogonal planes, if I know one normal component of stress and two mutually orthogonal shear stresses on that plane, so how many total stresses I need to know? Three on one plane and such three mutually orthogonal planes. So total I need to know 9 components of stresses. Are you with me till this part of the statement? Please respond in the chat box. I'm waiting for your response. Once I am sure that you have understood this, we will go ahead. Please respond. Okay, Meda says yes. Sumit says yes. Okay. So therefore, if I consider a point in a straight material, let us say A, I have considered three mutually orthogonal planes passing through that point A, and I know the complete state of stress. That means on each of these three planes, I know the normal stress and two shear stresses. Then you pick up any other triplet of mutually orthogonal planes passing through point A under consideration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this coordinate system. I'm going to define a new coordinate system, x dash, z dash, and y dash, such that this triplet x dash, z dash, x dash, z dash, and y dash, these three axes are mutually orthogonal. That means x dash, y dash plane is orthogonal to z dash, x dash plane and is orthogonal to z dash, y dash plane. So this is the another triplet of mutually orthogonal planes passing through the same point under consideration. सब एक ही जगह पे चल रहा है. When you are dealing with Moore's theorem, everything is happening at a point. What is the data that I have on planes xy, yz, and zx? I know one normal stress component and two shear stress components. So total 9 stress components are known to me. Now if I choose any other triplet of orthogonal planes such as x dash, z dash, x dash, y dash, and z dash, y dash, I will be able to compute normal and shear stresses on each of these planes by knowing sigma and these two taus. This is what the Moore's theorem says. So now, what is what is the number to which these unknowns have now reduced? So let us try to figure this out. So the first 3 remains as it is. Now I need to know 3 components of stresses, but not on infinite planes. Now I need to know these 3 components of stresses only on 3 mutually orthogonal planes. Mutually orthogonal planes. Because once I know these 3 components on any triplet of mutually orthogonal planes, I can find out the state of stress on any other mutually orthogonal planes passing through the point under consideration. This is what the statement says. So therefore, number of unknowns now have reduced to 3 into 3 into infinite. I hope you are with me. Still, this infinite number of points is the concern. So still, the number of unknowns that we have in our hand remains infinite. How to deal with this infinite number of points, we will see in a particular fashion, which will make these infinite points to a finite quantity. And that's why we call this method, or this method of analysis, as finite element analysis. I hope you are with me till this point. So this was the background. This is what we are trying to solve. This is what the basics are. Now we are going to try and name each of these 9 components of the stresses or strains that we should know uh, at a point. So let us try to name these components. Now mind you, whatever I am drawing next, everything is happening at a point under consideration. Everything is happening at a point A. What I am going to do is, for visualization purpose, I am going to construct a small parallelepiped, or for that matter you can say a cube, around this point A, which has dimensions dx, dy and dz. So let me draw that cube here. So that cube will look something like this. This is the cube that is constructed about point A under consideration. So I hope you are able to imagine this. This is the parallelepiped or cube that is constructed at point A in a strained material. So everything is happening at a point. What is this dimension? So it is along the length of the beam. So it is going to be dx. So I am going to call this dimension as dx. The vertical direction, we have named it as z axis. So I am going to call this as dz. And this dimension, the other one, this one, I am going to call it as dy. So what is the size of this cube? Dx cross dy cross dz. This is the volume of the cube. And mind you, each of these quantities, dx, dy and dz, are infinitesimally small. So dx is tending to 0, dy is tending to 0, and dz is tending to 0. So in the limit, as dx tends to 0, dy tends to 0 and dz tends to 0, this volume shrinks to a point. I hope you agree with me. The notion of volume will be taken off when dx is tending to 0, dy is tending to 0 and dz is tending to 0. The volume tends to shrink to a point. And therefore, what we are essentially saying is, we are considering various planes passing through point A under consideration. Everything is happening at a point. But to have visual representation of stresses on these planes, we say that we are constructing a small parallelepiped around that point, which has the sides tending to 0. Till this point, are you with me? Quickly answer that in chat box and then we can go ahead. Are you with me till this point? Someone is waiting in the lobby. Let me check. No, no one is waiting in the lobby now. Okay. So are you with me till this point? Yes. Okay. So let us go ahead. Now, how do I denote normal component on this plane? So for visualization purpose, now I am going to mark the planes by lines like this. So this is the plane under consideration. So which is this plane? This plane has one dimension as dz and another dimension as dy. So in fact, this plane is nothing but yz plane passing through point A. Interestingly, what can I say about this plane? Zara dekho. What can I say about this plane? This is also a yz plane. So therefore, in fact, as dx tends to 0, these two planes are going to denote the one and only one plane, and that is yz plane passing through point A. So this is for visualization purpose. This is also a yz plane passing through A. So whatever is happening on this plane, which is marked in red, same thing happens on the plane which is marked in orange, because these two are essentially same planes. This is the same plane passing through point A under consideration. I hope you are understanding what I am trying to say. Now let us go ahead. Now can you tell me what should I call to this plane marked in blue? This is ZX plane. So it is XZ plane passing through point A under consideration. Everything is happening at a point. So it is XZ plane passing through point A under consideration. If you look at this plane, which I am again marking in blue itself, this plane is also a XZ plane passing through point A under consideration. So these two planes are essentially same. When dy shrinks to 0, these two planes are nothing but a single xz plane passing through point A under consideration. The same argument I can apply to uh, this plane, which I will mark in green, which I am going to call it as ZX plane or XZ plane passing through point under consideration. This plane is also ZX plane passing through point under consideration. So how many planes are we considering? Through point A, though we see the 6 faces of the cube, we are considering essentially only 3 mutually orthogonal planes, XZ, YZ and XY. Are you with me till this point? Please type your response in chat box. Then I can proceed. Yes, you can. Yes. Okay. So Anuja says yes. Others also please be attentive. If you miss this conceptual part of the course, then rest of the course is going to be the black box. Okay. So now, what are the stresses that act on each of these planes? There are going to be one normal stress and two shear stresses acting on each of these planes. How do we denote? What is the sign convention for these stresses? तो अब जरा यहाँ पे ध्यान दो. I am going to draw the very first component. I am going to maintain the color code. So on the plane that I have marked with red, I will draw the stress components in red. So this is the stress that is normal to the plane under consideration. ये जो YZ plane है उसको ये perpendicular stress है. Therefore, my notation is going to be sigma for this stress. All the stresses that are perpendicular to the plane under consideration, I am going to call them as sigma, by notation sigma. And then I am going to write down this as sigma xx. So let me also draw the directions. This is X, this is Z, and this is Y. So why do I call this as XX? Why there is double X here? Because each suffix has a particular meaning. For example, sigma stands, each of this symbol, each term in this symbol has a unique meaning. Sigma stands for, we are talking about a component which is normal to the plane under consideration. Which is the plane under consideration? We are considering YZ plane passing through point A. So the component normal to the YZ plane, therefore we are going to call it as, denoted by notation sigma. What is the first X stand for? First X stands for the plane on which you are considering this trace component. How? देखो अब इसका डेफिनेशन, व्हाट इज सिग्मा आई जे? लेट मी डिफाइन व्हाट डू वी मीन बाय सिग्मा आई जे. Sigma ij is normal stress acting on a plane to which I is perpendicular. I is perpendicular. This is the notation for perpendicular. And it is acting along G. So what is the meaning of sigma ij? Sigma है तो normal stress acting on a plane to which I direction is perpendicular and the component is acting in jth direction. This is what it means. Similarly, if it is going to be the shear stress component, I am going to denote it by tau ij. And how do I define tau ij? It is, instead of normal, you will have only one change in the description. It is shear stress. Rest of the description remains same. Shear stress acting on a sorry, shear stress acting on a plane to which ith direction is perpendicular and it is acting along direction J. So the first suffix is the indicator of the plane on which the stress component is acting, whereas the second suffix corresponds to direction along which that stress component is acting. For example, let us consider this sigma xx. By this definition, sigma xx is normal stress acting on a plane to which x is perpendicular. So what is the plane to which x is perpendicular? YZ plane. So sigma xx is a normal stress acting on YZ plane and it is acting along jth direction. J here is also x. So therefore it is acting along x direction. So you can see sigma xx is a normal stress acting on a plane to which x axis is perpendicular. So it is acting on YZ plane and it is along x direction. Whether it is along positive x direction or negative x direction doesn't make sense. It's okay. We are going to still denote it as second suffix as x, whether it is in positive x or in negative x. Now, on the similar lines, let us try to define this shear stress acting on YZ plane itself. So what should I call this stress component? I am going to call this stress component as tau because it is shear stress. It is not a normal stress. So I am going to call it as tau. It is acting on which plane? It is acting on a plane to which x-axis is perpendicular. It is acting on YZ plane. So therefore I am going to have the first suffix as x, tau x, and it is acting in which direction? It is acting in z direction. No doubt it is in negative z direction, but it is immaterial whether the direction is positive or negative. I am going to call it as tau xz. Are you with me till this point? Please type your response in the chat box. So this component I am going to call it as tau xz. Once I receive your response, I will go ahead. Okay, Devani says yes, Anuja says yes, Prithviraj says yes. Okay, great. At any point of time, you can unmute yourself and ask me if there is any doubt. Even if the smallest doubt is there, it's okay. It is okay to be silly one times, but it is not okay to be silly all the times. So therefore, ask the doubts and get it clear. Now, let us draw the next component. So on this plane, we are going to have another shear stress component which is going to be perpendicular to the earlier component. And what should I name this component as? I can name this component as tau acting on a plane to which x-axis is perpendicular. So it is still acting on yz plane and it is acting along y direction. So I am going to call it as tau xy. I hope you are clear what I am trying to say. This component is along y direction and it is acting on a plane to which x-axis is perpendicular. So therefore I am going to call it as tau xy. Now, I will mark the component and in chat box you are going to respond the name of the stress given to that component. So please respond to me in chat box. I am going to mark a component. What should I call this stress as? Now tell me that in chat box. Yeah, I'm waiting for your response. Tell me, what do I call that component? You can just spell it. You cannot have the symbol in the chat box. Somebody says, Sushant says tau yz. No, Sushant, because it is not a shear stress. Sigma zz. Yes, Anuja, you are absolutely correct. Swapnil said it is sigma a. No, no, a doesn't have any meaning. I told you the way in which it needs to be written. Oh, okay. He has just said only sigma. No, not sigma. It has to be sigma zz. Why? Let us try to understand this. 1 minute. So it is acting on which plane? So look at the color code. It is acting on this plane. What is this plane? What have I what this plane is called as? It is Z X plane. No. Which is this plane? XY plane. I'm sorry. This is XY plane. This component is normal to the XY plane. It is acting on XY plane and it is normal to the XY plane. So therefore, I need to denote it by notation sigma. It is acting on a plane to which z-axis is perpendicular. Z-axis is perpendicular to xy plane. So therefore, I will denote it by sigma z. First suffix will be z. And what is the second suffix? It is the direction along which this component is acting. So I will have to call this as sigma zz. Fine. Now, let us look at this component. What should I call this component as? This is the stress which is acting in the plane xy and it is acting on plane xy. So it is shear stress component. So I am compelled to call it as tau. It is acting on which plane? It is acting on xy plane to which z-axis is perpendicular. So I am going to call it as tau z. And it is acting in which direction? It is acting in y direction. So I will have to call it as tau zy. So I am going to call this component as tau zy. Similarly, what should I call this component as? This is also acting in xy plane. It is parallel to xy plane. So I will have to call it as tau. It is acting on a plane xy to which z-axis is perpendicular. So first suffix is going to be z and it is acting in x direction. Negative or positive doesn't matter. So I am going to call it as tau zx. Now let us quickly write down all the stress components on xz plane. So on xz plane, the stress that is acting normal to the xz plane, I am going to call it as sigma yy. Why? Because sigma, that is normal stress, acting on a plane to which y-axis is perpendicular, that is xz plane. It is acting on xz plane and it is acting in y direction. Positive or negative doesn't matter. So I'm going to call this stress component as sigma yy. What should I call this component as? Now this component lies in xz plane. It is parallel to the xz plane, so I must call it as tau. It acts on xz plane to which x-axis is perpendicular, so it is tau x, and it is acting in z direction, so I'm going to call it as tau xz. And this shear stress component, I'm going to call it as tau I'm sorry. I need to call it as tau yz, not xz. Very sorry, because it is acting on xz plane to which y-axis is perpendicular. So this is tau yz, and I should call this as tau y. This direction is x, so I'm going to call it as tau yx. Are you with me? If you have understood the notation for this all these stresses, please type yes in the chat box. Please type yes in the chat box if you have understood. Okay. Sushant says yes. Supriya says yes. So most of you, I believe many of you are saying yes. If anyone has a doubt, please unmute and ask me immediately. Now, so therefore, we have understood that there are 9 components of the strains that we must be knowing in order to know the complete state of stress on any plane passing through a point under consideration. तो वो कौन-कौन से stresses है? So I am going to call those stresses as sigma xx, sigma yy, sigma zz, then tau xy, tau yx. Then you are going to have tau xz, tau zx. Then you are going to have tau yz and tau zy. These are the 9 components of stresses that you need to know in order to find out normal and shear stresses on any of the plane passing through point A under consideration. This x, y, z are randomly oriented. Only the thing is they are mutually orthogonal. That's the thing that you need to understand. So now, if I arrange these stresses in this fashion, I get a column matrix of size 9 cross 1. And what is the notation for this column matrix? This column matrix, I am going to call it as stress tensor. क्या बोलते हैं हम इसको? We call it as stress tensor. What is the difference between vector and a tensor? We will come to that in a while, but I am going to call it as stress tensor at a point. At a point. यहाँ पे कौन सा point है? For example, here we are considering point A in a strained material. In a strained material. Strained material. So books simply write it as stress tensor. उससे कुछ नहीं समझता, दिमाग में पूरा confusion. What we are trying to say is this tensor, we call it as a stress tensor at a point in a strained material. This stress tensor will vary from point to point. You have to understand the values of sigma xx to tau zy will vary as you change the point. एक के जगह कोई और point उठा लूं तो ये सारे values अलग होने वाले. Now mind you, all the entries that we make in this stress tensor, they are not acting on a single plane passing through a point. No, these entries are acting on one of the 3 mutually orthogonal planes passing through a point under consideration. For example, all entries in this strain tensor at point A, they act on 3 planes, xy, yz and zx, which are mutually orthogonal. You have to understand looking at the first suffix on which plane the particular stress component is acting. So therefore, we call it as a stress tensor at a point. Keep in mind that these are 9 stress components that act on 3 mutually orthogonal planes passing through a point under consideration. Are you with me? Now, in general, this stress tensor is a function of what? It is a function of space. That means it is a function of x, y, z. If I going to change the x, y, z coordinates, it is like I am choosing the another point, point B, and the values of all these stress components is going to change in general. So therefore, each of the term in this stress tensor or this stress tensor at a point is a function of coordinates of that point. You change the coordinate, you reach a different point, you are going to have different values of each of these components in general. And now imagine that there is an event of earthquake. Even at a given location, as the time changes, these stress components are going to change because earthquake is a temporal phenomena. It evolves in time, not in space. Therefore, at a given point during the earthquake time history, the stresses are going to change. So in general, these stress tensor components are going to be the functions of space, that is x, y, z and t. Fortunately, this being the first course in finite element method, we are not going to consider time dependence. So this will not be considered. We are not going to consider dynamic loads in this course. So in this course, we will only consider variation of the stress tensor in space, in a strained material. Of course, you cannot say that you are considering a point outside the body. What nonsense. Then there is no meaning for stress components there. Within the strained material, you can go on changing x, y, z. You will get a different point, and all these values are going to change. That's what I mean to say. So this is what we are going to consider in this course, the space dependence of this stress tensor. Now on similar lines, how do I write strain tensor at a point? It is also going to have, also going to be a matrix of 9 cross 1, and I'm going to have 9 strain components. Sigma xx will correspond to epsilon xx, sigma yy will correspond to epsilon yy, and sigma zz will correspond to epsilon zz. Tau xy, tau yz, yx, gamma xy, gamma yx, tau xz, tau zx, gamma xz, gamma zx, then tau yz, tau zy, gamma yz, gamma zy. So this is a strain tensor. Of course, it is strain tensor at a point in a strained material. So stress tensor and strain tensor are can be arranged in a format of a column matrix having size in general 9 cross 1. Now tomorrow we are going to apply something called as principle of complementary shears, and then we will see that this 9 cross 1 stress tensor diminishes to 6 cross 1 tensor. So that discussion we will do in the next class, and then we will relate the stress and strain tensors with the strain energy stored in the body under the action of various loads. So this is where we are going to stop today. We are going to stop today early because I have a meeting, but from tomorrow onwards we will have full stretch lectures 1 hour, and we are going to deal with the relationship between stress and strain tensor and stress and strain tensors and strain energy. So let us stop here today. I hope you have understood whatever I have spoken till now. If you have any doubt, you can unmute yourself and ask me. If not, just say yes, and then you can type your name and PRN number in the chat box, and you can leave the meeting. Please type yes so that I understand everyone is there and was listening to me. So, chalo, have a good day.